But we move on to DAQRI and the CEO of DAQRI, Brian Mullins. And I mean, this is an extraordinary session. The people in this session, Brian and Jay and Thomas and DAQRI, Qualcomm and Metaio, really this conference wouldn't exist without them. What they've done for the field of augmented reality is superlative, and DAQRI down in LA has done incredible work both for the creative potential of augmented reality and the industrial applications, and you've got to see what they've done. It's extraordinary. Thank you.
Tish, thank you so much for such a kind introduction. I know that everybody was really excited to come to the major sponsors panel today, but hopefully we can still be pretty entertaining and show you some things or make you think in a different way about this medium. It's actually really exciting for me to be here, having come to this event for the last 4 years, pretty much since the inception, when it was just a couple hundred really passionate people, and now to see it grow to thousands of really passionate people is really rewarding and exciting for the industry. Today I'm going to talk a little bit about bringing ideas to life and what we're doing at DAQRI to support that. So one of the things, though, that I think is important to understand is that we look at augmented reality as a medium, really a tool, one of the technologies that we use to create a medium that we tell stories in the real world. So I think it's really important to think about ideas and stories at a fundamental level. And one of the people that did that thousands of years ago was Plato. He actually has some really interesting work about what is an idea and what is real. And one of his theses was that only ideas were what was real. This room, the people in it, were just a facsimile of the idea of the room. At DAQRI, we actually think that he was onto something, but that the truth is really the idea is as important and as real as the thing. And whether it's manufactured with traditional means or 3D printed or manifested in augmented reality, we think that there's an equal value, and really just it's about reducing the friction of manifesting those ideas and bringing those ideas to life. Really, the underlying message is that this is a medium, and we really can't afford to follow. We have to innovate. We have to look forward to really manifesting these ideas and these stories in new ways. Historically, in augmented reality, we've seen a lot of using the technology to put a 3D object onto a page. This is one of my favorite YouTube videos, and it shows just that, the idea of taking a page and having a 3D object appear on top of it. And the truth is, all of the technology that we use isn't even necessary to do that. You can do it with a simple optical illusion. And this is a really good reminder that the first step is associating it with the real world. The next step is the idea and the story that you tell with that idea. So at DAQRI, we've looked really closely at what makes a great augmented reality experience, and what really makes an augmented reality experience at all. And so we've divided up into 4 areas: visualization, knowledge transfer, storytelling, and play. And we think it's really important to understand those fundamental building blocks, and then the best experiences have the component of all of those, whether you're telling a story for entertainment, whether you're educating in a classroom, or whether you're doing knowledge transfer on the factory floor. If you give a piece of each of these in the experience, it's going to be better than anything else. But what we wanted to do was create a tool that a storyteller could use themselves without having to write any code. That was really important to us. It had to be a creative suite that let you make fully interactive experiences, to have a workflow to really make those valuable, and also not require you to code. A lot of our customers in all the segments would have thousands of creators that made 3D models or that made movie content, but they would only have a small subset of that population that had a developer, or more particularly mobile developers. So we really wanted to create a tool that the storytellers could use themselves. And 4D Studio, which we invite you to come see in the booth, has really rich tools like the chapter system that's depicted here, that lets you, without being a coder, stage multiple branching scenes that all interact and then get delivered seamlessly through our CDN. We think it's really important for those creators to be able to make a workflow, and that those experiences aren't just something on a page. And so I'm going to show you one of the things that you can make with it, because we use 4D Studio to create ourselves. It was Elements 4D. It was a passion project We showed it last year. You can come see it in the booth. It's about taking the beauty of chemistry and the periodic tables, showing them brought to life on top of a real object, and then making them interactive. And everything you see here was also inspired by a really robust community of educators that's popped up around elements, and then taking their ideas and manifesting them using 4D Studio. So it's really kind of exciting to see what you can get with a tool that's not for the traditional augmented reality creator. It's not for a developer. It's for the community at large. It's really exciting for us. We use it across the board, our educational apps. This is one of my favorites, which we have a new version of starting today, Anatomy 4D version 2, which has some really cool features, including seeing an expanded library of content. And if you have a Bluetooth heart rate monitor, you can see this heartbeat with your own heart rate. We're really excited of that type of outside-of-the-box interaction, but also being publishable from 4D Studio. But one of the things that I really wanted to share today was the idea that ideas exist in many more places than we traditionally associate with augmented reality, and there's storytelling to be done. And as Tish mentioned, one of the most important markets for us is the industrial sector, where we do a lot of knowledge transfer and the storytelling that goes with that. And I wanted you to hear it firsthand, so we wanted to bring one of our great customers here to tell you firsthand, Raytheon, which is one of the leading aerospace companies. And I'd like to invite to the stage Andy Lowery, who is chief engineer of their electronic warfare group, to talk a little bit about how they used 4D Studio for an augmented reality application. Welcome.
Turn something on. All right, so I don't have any slides because the amount of people that I had to get approval for to actually show you what we augmented it was quite a story to be able to tell. I couldn't quite get it through everybody. So you can imagine a lot of stuff is ITAR controlled and stuff like that we work in the space. But I think I'll start the story with telling you a little bit about the program, and sort of unscripted, so if I start to run long, maybe Brian can tell me that I'm over my time. But there was an electronic warfare program which was constructing a large pod. It looked like a fuel tank that flew on the port and starboard wing of an F-18 type of an aircraft, and it was, about 16, 17 feet long, about 30 inches in diameter. And it was stuffed full of electronics. He talked about the anatomy app in his last little pitch. And if you look at the visible person or whatever they do with all the stuff that humans have inside of it, this was kind of the robotic version of that. It had a power system, a cooling system, an RF system. And all of this stuff, because of the type of program it was, very volume constrained, needed to be kind of put into a very constrictive environment or constrictive space. So when you looked at it in a three-dimensional modeling sense, or when you were trying to make interpretations of how this would fit or that would fit, it was a very difficult thing to do. We had big screens where we had the things catted out and stuff like that. And Brian had introduced augmented reality and what he calls 4D technology, and what DAQRI is starting to call 4D because of the things like the heart monitor and other sorts of inputs is sort of more expansive than, is this not a good microphone? I sound horrible in that one. I sound so much better now, right? So tone down my voice a little bit so I don't sound so nasally. Anyway, so in this application he brought in, years ago he talked about the industrial application with me over lunch, and we had worked together I was sitting in sort of an advisory role, I guess, in some of the industrial applications. And at the beginning of the pursuit of this particular competition for this electronic warfare pod, we were making very rapid innovations. So we would design a system, and then a new requirement would come out, and it would cause us to have to redesign the system. I had a team of about 130 or 140 engineers involved, and I had mechanical engineers doing cooling and structure. I had electrical engineers doing RF, power. I had, aeronautical engineers looking at flows of air and stuff like that around the pod and stuff like that, control systems engineers. And so they're all contributing to this integrated pod. And when you system integrate something like that, you have a lot of things that don't line up quite right physically, electrically. But important in this augmented reality story that we augmented was the physical kind of alignment. And then early in the phase of an industrial application, the other thing you're worried about is how do you work on something like this? So the folks here from Boeing and stuff are very aware that, one of the biggest concerns of working on an F-18 on board an aircraft carrier deck is just getting the maintainers between the wing and between different stores and being able to get things out and in and out of it easily. So if you take that all into account and keeping with the themes of bringing ideas to life, we had a concept of what we could possibly construct. We started to put that into models like Pro-E and stuff. And then we had an idea to construct it as a full three-dimensional, full-scale model. But again, rapidly changing it every day. So I went and I approached Brian and DAQRI about 2 years ago, and I said, would it be possible to take the Pro-E drawings that we have in existence and integrate those into something that we could augment, put it on some kind of a traceable thing, and then be able to look at things like fit checks or maintenance procedures, and even be able to educate the customer of where we stand currently with the design and how it's coming together. And he said, absolutely, it'd be easy to do. I mean, the 3D models kind of exist, the import into the tool, and then the creation of sort of this dynamic, interactive model would be an easy thing. So we did that. We scaled it such that the ability for us to look at the thing at a large scale or a small scale, you can interact and make it bigger or smaller. And then as we started to introduce it to the customer, it gained traction internally to Raytheon. So we ended up culminating this educational system, if you would, in the AR space by presenting it to our board of directors at our yearly board meeting. We presented it back to the Navy when we ended up doing the orals discussion, where we brought an actual full-scale model that we did end up constructing and bringing out, but the iteration that we brought in augmented was more up-to-date, so then we scaled that and said, okay, look, we've got this augmented thing, and it just kind of, I think, really sold the day for us when we went out and did our orals, because not only was it very, very easy to explain sort of the different systems and how they engaged by turning things on and off, you could get a feel for the system and how it kind of came together, but most importantly, it kind of set us as Raytheon as the leading edge technology supplier or potential customer to the government, because we're using technology that was really at the tip of the spear. And our competitors kind of weren't, they didn't present in that same way or whatever. And so it gave the government a feeling that in a program such as this, where you have to have sort of a rapid ability and an agile development sort of a sense to make many iterations and kind of figure out different dynamics of the system in a quick and rapid manner, to have technology like this and to use technology like this was a real differentiator for us. So it was a very successful project, and there was my ad-lib kind of retelling of it. So did I miss anything?
No, that's perfect. Can you share the value of the capture of that project with the group, or is that?
Yeah, no, it's in the press or whatever. I mean, it's a very large program. You can look it up. It's amounted to be an $8 billion capture. So these are, they stretch over many years, like 10 or 15 years. But in total, NGJ was about $8 billion. So it was a serious deal. So that Raytheon ended up winning. And I don't say I owe it all to DAQRI, but there was a little bit of hard work of the 120 engineers or whatever that went into it. But certainly it definitely helped us in a significant way. So.
Great. Thank you, Andy. We really appreciate you coming on stage. We know it's very difficult with communications to share some of these things, and I think it's really exciting for us to even get a taste of the workflow that we could participate with. Hundreds of really smart people working on projects that are worth billions of dollars, collaborating and really manifesting their vision. And these guys are very smart people doing really specific scientific and technical trades that aren't mobile developers, but they can take the content that they make and use 4D Studio to put it into 4D, bring it to life in new ways, which is really exciting. Thanks again. So I'll leave you just with some parting shots about what's next and invite you to come visit us at the DAQRI booth. We've put a lot of thought into it. We're very proud of some really interesting things. You can see a demonstration of virtual humans. We're very excited at the idea of bringing fully photorealistic people into this space. And as augmented reality allows us to tell stories in larger and larger areas, to actually have that person, that celebrity, that entirely new character come to life in your space and interact with you in your space and be photorealistic, compelling, convincing, emotion driving, we think is really exciting and one of the next steps. Plus, pairing DAQRI with some of the latest tracking technologies makes the whole world your canvas in new and exciting ways. And one last thing that we're really interested in is new methods of interaction. Like we saw in the Intel example, the idea of gestures and even other types of input, EEGs, EMGs, both of these are a way of detecting brain signals, either through the signals that go out to the muscles or directly from the brain itself. And I think that we showed some of our research last year. We're very optimistic about how these new things will allow you to engage with this medium and the experiences in it in new and exciting ways. I'll show you one that's actually now available in 4D Studio, where you can take commercially available EEGs, connect them to the device through Bluetooth, and make them a part of the interactive experience. This is from our Enchantium line, which is our platform designed for toys and toy packaging and games. And there's my co-founder, Gaia, using her brain to control objects with an off-the-shelf EEG. So we're really excited in these new ways to interact with the content as much as we are in the new ways to get the content out into the world. So we invite you all to bring your ideas to life, and we're really excited to be here. So thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll have a few questions, and Jay will set up at the same time. So it's hard for me to see out there, so wave your hands. Yes.
Hi, thank you. Curious to know your thoughts on integrating with big data. I haven't heard a lot about that, but I'm thinking, just top of my head, if you're trying to illustrate something like rainfall and how that changes, or how much a certain percentage of rainfall might pool up in an area and so forth. Have you guys been looking into the big data?
Absolutely. I think it's a great question. I'll actually step out here while they set up. But I think it's really interesting. We draw parallels, and a lot of what we're doing in industrial is about data visualization. If the Internet of Things is about connecting everything together, we think augmented reality is really the user interface for the Internet of Things. And big data is tying to those things and the data behind them in really valuable ways. And so with storytelling, you have this kind of paradigm of a floating shoe is not enough, and you need to make it interactive. On the industrial side of things, a lot of what we're doing is the same way, but it's focused around visualizing real live data. It's one thing to show a couple of steps of a maintenance process, but even that's becoming old hat. When I can actually tap into OPC data from a factory floor equipment or tap directly into the big data sources to visualize those in the context of a machine or in the context of a pumping station, that's where it becomes really valuable. And I think that's the next generation of industrial augmented reality. So great question, thank you.
Do we have another quick question? Yes, waving hands big time at the... Oops.
Project, and I'll repeat the question, or...
All right, so you're working with the EEG sensors. Most of the time, it's 2 or 3 sensors. What do you foresee in the future with 18, 20, 30 sensors? What are the capabilities that you see in gaming and in AR?
Yeah, so it's a great question. We're working with, in the demo, we showed some very simple, commercially available, targeted individual users, EEGs for detecting brain waves, and what could you do with something that was more sophisticated with more channels. It's something we're really excited about. We think it's still a couple of years down the road before it really gets to hit what its potential is. But what we're seeing today is in the last 2 years, EEGs have developed more than in the last 70 years. And so it's really encouraging. We've even experimented with some of the medical grade EEGs. They're very cost prohibitive from an end use, but starting to see what patterns you can understand and then kind of normalizing between sessions and between users so you can have very common and rich interactions. And there's some fascinating neuro research that points to humans store concepts in similar ways so that you can start to extract ideas or thoughts from the statefulness of the brain. So I think we're really optimistic. In the 2 to 5 year range, you'll see a lot more. There's a burgeoning neuro gaming community as well that's pairing the two together and making great strides today. So.
Yes, on that note, we will actually ask Jay to come up, but thank you, Brian, because
It's my pleasure.
Yeah, I met Brian